All right, let's meet our purse base. The right side is the one with the feet, and the wrong side would be the inside. These are where it's completely flat. You can tell looking at it. I'm going to be using a 4 millimeter crochet hook in order to start the first round. And then after that, once we get our base stitches laid down, we're going to add and go back to the 5 millimeter, which is what we're going to crochet the bag with. Now I counted the holes here and you have 60 holes. So this particular pattern, what we want to do is we want to just crochet 2 here in each of these and 2 stitches in each of these. So there are 60 holes. So what I did was I just took the hole that's like congruent or sort of congruent. There's a little angle there that met this foot and this one. So that worked out perfectly because there's 15 stitches here, 15 stitches here, 15 stitches here, and 15 stitches here. So it doesn't really matter where you start, but it is important to get some stitch markers and put them in the first and 15th stitch here, and then these stitches here. So you should have 15, counting the holes that your stitch markers are in. I'm just going to start here, and all you need to do is make a slip knot and put that on your hook. Okay, this is a little fidgety, guys. I won't lie. It's just one of those things that you just have to work through and do it. We don't want this on our stitch marker there, but just wrap it around and then pull it through like you normally would. Now this first stitch, you're going to need to tighten it down a little bit, and that's okay. And again, I'm kind of standing up right now, so if this looks a little wonky, it is, but it's not if you're sitting down. Okay, all right, that's our first stitch. Our second stitch, just like all you're doing is just making a single crochet through the hole. You have to pull it up a little bit to get it to where it's at, but you just don't want it to be really loose. That's not something that you want because it'll make the bottom look wonky. All right, you got this. I'm just going to continue on with the next stitches, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop when I get to this first stitch marker. See you then. At this point, let's switch to our 5 millimeter crochet hook. And now hold the tail because we're just going to crochet over that. This will be your first and your last slip stitch. I want to crochet this just by going in a spiral. I don't want to slip stitch any more of the stitches together because it creates an unsightly line. So now all you're going to do is just single crochet for a little while over your tail. And then single crochet all the way around the rest of the stitches. And you are going to do that for inches. And I'll be back here and I'll just show you how I'm going to connect these 2 rows. Well, I got a little carried away and I didn't stop at the first stitch marker, which was right here, but that's okay. I can just show you, you guys get this. All right, so there are 15 stitches with the single crochet stitches, and that's the first edge, and this is where we started in this stitch right here. Then when we got to our first stitch marker, we began by putting 2 single crochets into that stitch. Took the stitch marker out, continued along to the next stitch marker, and this is easy to see, so you get what happened here. And then 2 single crochets in that last stitch marker. Then we did 15 single crochets here, and then we did 2 single crochets in these spaces, these holes here, which is where our stitch markers were at. So this gives us now a total of 90 stitches, and that's what we're going to be working on. So my loop slipped through here, so I'm just going to awkwardly kind of pull this up. That's okay, because we want to switch to our 5 millimeter. Close this out to stitch. All right, this is the only time, guys, we're going to do a slip stitch. So you're going to slip stitch the first stitch to the last stitch of this round, and I am going to crochet over that tail. I suggest you do the same because there's no reason not to. We don't have to weave it when it comes to that. Now put a stitch marker in that first stitch. Okay, there we go. Now we're also going to crochet, I'm sorry, I'm going to take that stitch marker out and show you the right way to put it. We're also going to crochet a single crochet into that first stitch. And all this is single crochet into each stitch around, but we don't join the rounds with a slip stitch because I don't know about you, but I hate that little line that it creates when it goes right up. So we are simply going to crochet this bag into a spiral. All right, going forward, again, all it is just single crocheting. Sorry, one thing I needed to mention. I need you to single crochet into the front loop of that stitch. I just did a round, and I think it's better if we do it this way. It's going to form the bag better. It's going to pull the bag up. So go ahead and just single crochet into the front loop of each stitch. And this is only for round 1. So again, you see how that's pulling the stitch forward? That's what I want to have happen. So just keep single crocheting into the front loop of each stitch. And again, that's 90 stitches. And then I'm going to stop. And when we get back to our stitch marker, we'll continue on from there. Okay, now that we've got our first round of stitches, not our base round, but our first round of stitches, we have 90 stitches total again that we're working with. And now we're back here at our stitch marker. So all you need to do is hold on to this stitch marker because you're going to be using it for the rest of the pattern. Now simply go a single crochet into the stitch with a stitch marker. Oh, for heaven's sakes, this is just, sorry guys, these first couple rows, they're very frustrating, but the good news is that this yarn doesn't split, so that's cool. But now all you're going to do is crochet in the round. We're not going to slip stitch, we're just going to keep crocheting in a spiral. But what you do definitely want to do is make sure you keep track of where that first stitch is. And all you need to do is just put a stitch marker into every time you come into that first stitch, and that's how you know how many rounds you want. Now I'm going to crochet this until it reaches inches. Now I'm going to crochet this with a single crochet stitch until it reaches inches. You can decide, this pattern is totally customizable, how tall or short you want your bag. We'll see you back. Okay, when your bag has reached the desired height, I have 34 rows on mine, or rounds, I'm sorry. Then what you want to do is just on this first stitch where the stitch marker is, you want to stop one stitch before that, just to make it more even, and then slip stitch into the last stitch of the round, and then slip stitch into the first stitch, and that'll make the row or the round look much more even. Now all you have to do is fasten it off and weave the tail. Then the next step is to make the tabs. Let's get ready to make our tabs. You're going to make 2, and they're very easy. They are 7 stitches that you work, so we'll chain 8, work 7 single crochets for 10 rows. I do want you to lead though with about a 12-inch tail for sewing. And you could also put the 12-inch tail on the end. It doesn't really matter. I just always like to lead with it that way. I don't forget it. Now, one technique that's a little different that I'm going to show you here is you're going to want to chain this a little loosely. Not super loosely where it's like falling apart or anything, but just loosely. Just relax. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, to make the edge the same as it is on both ends. See, we have the edges right there. This will be so much easier for sewing. We are going to do a technique that I'm starting to do in almost every pattern that I make now. And that is the first row is to be a single crochet into the second chain from the hook, of course. And then we're going right into that back bump or the back bar. And if you can't see it on this video, which you should be able to, but I have a short video that just shows this technique. It's very easy. All you're doing is just putting your single crochet stitch into a different spot. Instead of going in the regular way, you've flipped your chain stitch over and you have completed your 7 single crochets into the back bar, or some people call it the bump. One or the other, however you refer to it, just find the bump. The first row is always wonky, but what'll happen, you guys, is that it's going to be so much easier to sew. And I love this. I love doing everything like this, and I'll probably almost every pattern that I've got. Some you can't do it, but I would say 90% of my patterns now, I do this on the first row all the time. Okay, so now we're just going to continue with crocheting 10 rows. Chain 1, of course, at the end here, and then complete your 9 more rows of just regular single crochet stitches across the 7 stitches. So it's 10 rows total, and it's across 7 stitches. And make 2, and we'll meet back for the construction. Here we go. Chain 1 and turn. All right. Right now we're going to put the handles on our Cadillac bag. So the first thing to do is to fold it like this. And what I did was I just laid it down with the base toward the back. And I measured mine, and I really made sure that I had it where I knew I was going to put the handle tabs, and that came out to 14 inches. So I placed a stitch marker in the center. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my needle and thread it, and then show you guys how to sew the handle on. Okay, so I just wanted to show you these new needles that I got lately. They're pretty cool. This container, I'm always losing them. And this container is actually really nice. It's very heavy. And for the price, it was just amazing. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to thread our needle with our yarn threader. And I've talked about this thing ad nauseum, so just know that I can't do what I do without it. That's all I can say about that. All right. This is entirely up to you as far as where you want to place your tab. Like, the most important thing is just to center it, and then turn it over. I'm going to turn this around so that I can start sewing it. It's going to be easier this way. So if you have your tab, just make sure that you are lining it up in the center, of course, but just along a row. See how that works? The bottom is lined up to this row right here. So if I do it this way, my tab, this is going to be the placement of my handle, which is just perfect. I can also look down here and see that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's the 10th row, and that's the center. So all I want to do at first is just go ahead and secure it so that it doesn't move around as much. And I didn't get that tail as much as I should have. But how often has that happened to everybody? So let's try this again. It's okay, I have a needle threader, so it's all good. Okay, so when I come back through, Now I'm going to come back through the top. I'm going to just line this up here. Make sure again that that's really the center. The stitch marker's a little turned, so this is the center. And then, like I said, I'm going to keep it in line with the bottom of that row, and then I'll do the same on the other side. So we're just going to go right through here. And remember I told you that by doing it this way, like the stitches, so that the crochet ends were on both sides, how we did the beginning into the back bump. Do you see how much easier this is? Look at, I can just sew through, right through where I need to go. There's no question as to the placement of this. It's perfect. It's just absolutely aligned. It is a little tricky because you do have to sew it on with the handle, but that's why it's really important to know where that row is and just to keep it right there. And then just go through your stitches. Go slow. That way there won't be any mistakes, because pulling this out will not be fun. But if it happens, just deal with it. That's how I live. It's like, okay, we're going to deal with this. We didn't do it the right way, but we're going to make it work. So that's how you sew the handles on. So I'm going to sew both handles on. We'll meet back here and we'll see what our bag looks like. After you get it sewn down here, then you're going to want to come back at the top of that first row and then just sew it back in the opposite direction, and then over the edge. And yes, that is it. Now you can weave your tails and you can put your handle on the other side, and you have just made a very lovely bag. Thank you for watching and have a great day.